Hello and welcome everyone. Great Education Colorado, Annalise here. I am so excited to start today off with my favorite executive director, Lisa Weil. How are you doing?
How kind. I'm doing well, Annalise.
We're not here to talk about great ed today, Ari. Not much, at least. We're actually here to highlight our luncheon and one of the sponsors favorite organizations, right? So Chevron has been able to highlight 5-Star Education Foundation with all of the amazing work they're doing in Colorado. So we have this segment as an opportunity to amplify the work that is being done to create welcoming school environments, which is our luncheon theme this year. How are you feeling about that, Lisa? Luncheon is 20 days away. How are you feeling?
When you said that, my heart stopped for a second, but we're ready and it's going to be wonderful. And one of the reasons it's going to be wonderful, we are so excited about this partnership that we're able to highlight. I am going to talk about great ed for just enough to say our vision is a Colorado where every student, no matter their zip code, learning needs, the color of their skin, the language spoken at home, that every student graduates ready to lead their best life. And our work is to make sure that schools are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. And what we're able to do, we are celebrating at our luncheon the folks who are creating welcoming environments in our schools for Coloradans' very diverse students. And Chevron is our presenting sponsor. We're so excited to have them back as this presenting sponsor. And they have brought to us and are going to bring and talk about today this incredible work that the Adams 12 5-Star School District and the Adams 12 5-Star Foundation, the work that they're doing together to make sure that every student is really having their basic needs met, so that kids can come ready to learn. They're meeting students where they are. I think it's a lesson it's an example that I hope a lot of districts will and folks will hear about and recognize the importance.
Thanks, Lisa. And we're just going to be able to sit back and enjoy hearing all the wonderful things. With no further ado, we'll bring up our sponsor and organizations.
Hi, everyone. I am Shannon Hancock. I'm the Executive Director of the 5-Star Education Foundation. I'm so thrilled to be here with our partner and our investor, Chevron. Carrie is our social investment advisor and has been a great partner of ours this year and in prior years to really make a difference in the lives of our kids. The 5-Star Education Foundation is the education nonprofit to the Adams 12 5-Star District. And just for those who are maybe a little unaware, we're in the North Metro area. We've got Thornton, North Glen, Westminster, Federal Heights, and Broomfield. And it's just an amazing school district. And I always say that we are just big enough to do super impactful things, and we're small enough to remain a little boutique and get creative in our schools and really have that special touch with our students. This district, I'm so inspired by it that I get to work in support of it. And we say that we want to know every student by name, strength, and need. And what we're doing with the 5-Star resource closets is exactly that. So I'm excited to have these panelists here today to kind of talk about what it's doing and how we welcome schools into this environment, and to really highlight that investment piece that Chevron's been doing for us over the years. So the resource network, and we'll get a little deeper into it just for those who don't know, is really triage support for our students and families. We want to make sure that there is zero barrier access to getting the education that our students deserve. And that means really making sure that they are warm, safe, and fed, ready to start their day, ready to be part of the learning community. At the school level, the resource network looks like resource closets where students and their families can be referred to and can access emergency food, clothing, hygiene, and school supplies just to get through their day and to get tapped into more resources. But really, these panelists can really tell us what that looks like. And so I want to welcome, first and foremost, Carrie Baird, our social investment advisor over at Chevron. Hi, Carrie. I want to say hello to Liesl Reed. She is the coordinator of the Whole Child Initiatives program at Adams 12. We've got Chris Duran. He's the assistant principal over at Future Forward Bowman and Thornton. And then I have my coworker and partner in action on this, Jonna Green. She is the grants and program director at the Five Star Foundation. Thank you for coming, you guys, and welcome. You guys, we're going to jump right into it. I think that this is an awesome chance to talk about how we welcome students into the Five Star School District. I want to start with Liesl, because Liesl, you've really been the creator and the visionary around the Resource Network. And can you tell us a little bit more about how this came about and what the Resource Network is?
Yes, thank you, Shannon. Hello, everyone. That's a very generous statement to be the creator and visionary. Really, we've been in partnership with Five Star Foundation. There has been no light between Shannon and I since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. In November of 2020, Shannon reached out and said there was some money available, and what should we do with it? What was something we could do that would make a huge impact as we're going through this global pandemic. And something that I had been thinking about a lot, but had become even more important, was this idea of decentralizing resources. And so up to that point, my program had really not only been a logistical, but also a physical center for families to go and get basic needs resources. And given the geographical size of our district, that was creating a lot of barriers for families in terms of transportation, time off of work, et cetera. And so this idea that maybe we could decentralize and go the opposite direction, where we were able to put these resources in the hands of the schools, really came to life at that point. We went into very, very high gear. I think we had about 2 weeks to talk to principals, office managers, purchasing, facilities, all the people that needed to be involved, and get those resource rooms up and running in January of 2021. The resource rooms, yes, provide basic resources, basic needs, this idea of triage. And also at a time of such intense disconnection as was happening during the global pandemic, it was just we were more and more aware that we needed to reestablish connection. And this was a really powerful way for us to do that, to reestablish connection between school communities and the students and families and caregivers that they serve. So yes, this is about providing resources, but also about building and rebuilding really strong communities at the time that it was most needed. And then the Resource Network was really able to create a true continuum of services for all of our students and families, from having immediate needs identified to being referred to our program, which I think we're going to talk about in a little bit, and then being able to refer out to long-term resources. And so having families at the access points all the way through was what really solidified and brought everything together.
Liesl, really, you're too modest, and thank you for that, because it's something that I know all of our school districts here in Colorado are thinking about and have been confronted with, and it's been really interesting to see the creativity that's come out of it and the different ways to reach students, and what you and your staff have done is just phenomenal. You did talk about the money side, and I think that's really important. And that's really, Jonna comes in on the program coordination side and the money side. And Jonna, as Liesl mentioned, the foundation really came into this partnership at the height of COVID and the uncertainty of food security for the first few months. And what trends were you seeing both in the funding, and really what are you seeing today in terms of trends for things like this?
Yeah, in the early stages of the COVID emergency, COVID funding was on everyone's mind. Local community partners, large and small, rallied around us to ensure that all of our families had access to these resources while schools were closed. And with all of this support, we quickly grew our resource closet program to over 40 sites, which covered 73% of our school district. As time went on, the need continued to increase. Liesl's team continued to receive more and more referrals every day. And so we at the Five Star Education Foundation continued to increase our support for all Adams 12 students' basic needs to ensure that their needs were being met and they could start each school day being learning ready and ready to be active participants in the classroom. We saw another spike in need when emergency COVID support families were receiving ended. Since then, we've seen a slight decline in need, but we're still serving over an average of 10,800 individuals per month. Emergency COVID funds have dried up and funding sources are starting to move away from food security. So we're continuing to build and grow our community partnerships with amazing organizations around us who are already doing this work and continue to support our families long term.
Yeah, when you say those numbers out loud, Jonna, it kind of blows me away. I see them every day and we think about them, but wow, when you hear them out loud, it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. So,
Yeah.
And Chris, I think you can really give some perspective, kind of that boots on the ground as an administrator in a building. And your building is really unique, and I'll let you speak to that. But what are some unique factors impacting the students at your school? And what does a resource closet or the resource network look like at your school? And how do you see it supporting students?
Yeah, thank you, Shannon, and thank you for the warm welcome. Before we get started, I just want to name two things. One, some theme that's coming out of the conversation today. We're talking about access, and really what comes to mind for me when we think about access is really equity, right? Providing opportunities for kids, providing opportunities for families to truly meet them where they are. And I think when this whole idea around resource closets, I think came to fruition in Adams 12, I think it came to us at a time when our district was really in a position to start thinking about how do we continue to embody the importance of meeting people where they are. And so I think one of the things that I really admire about the vision around resource closets is it's not just, I think what Lisa was saying, decentralizing this operation to saying, instead of it being at one place, rather, how do we put it in places where we are knowing that we're going to see the foot traffic and in spaces and communities where people feel comfortable, our students feel comfortable. Schools typically are those spaces where students feel most, where the warm welcome is, and they feel most comfortable in those spaces. So being able to provide them the resources and access points to those things at the school level is so important. So I say that all to say about the impact of what it looks like for Bowman. So Future Forward Bowman is one of two career and tech ed campuses within the Adams 12, school district. And so primarily our students are being bused in or they're driving into our campuses to receive career and technical education training throughout the day, and so unfortunately, right, our school doesn't have a cafeteria, but fortunately, we have partnered with the foundation to be able to provide the resource closets for our students to be able to access throughout the day. So as students are transitioning in and out of our building throughout the day, students are able to come by the main office, scan their badge in. We track what students are receiving these resources, but more so tracking how many, touch points are we seeing around the number of students occupying space with us as they take advantage of the resource closet. And that happens before and after classes throughout the whole day. In addition to that, I want to share a little bit of a story, right? Because when I think about the impact of this work, I think it's important to also truly understand the essence and the impact of the work and the impact it has on our families. So later part of fall of 2023 school year, I noticed a young man that was regularly attending our resource closet. He was coming in before class, he was going to class, he was coming after class, and he had a travel period. And sometimes he would wait just long enough to where the next, slew of kids was coming in. He would just kind of come in and kind of disguise himself to get some more access to food or resources within our closet. And we were coming up on our winter break, which is a 2-week break, right? I mean, when you think about kids and where they're going to go, and when they go to school, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, 2 weeks is a long time when you really rely on having access to food on the daily from your school. And so I told him, I said, listen, I said, I know that you're coming in a lot. I said, I don't want to ask any questions. I think it's important for you to know that there's a lot of food here that is just going to go, it's going to sit here until we get back from break. And I'd rather it go to, families who need it. And so I gave him the opportunity to take one of the bags that we had in our resource closet. And I said, treat this as a grocery store, right? Grab what you need for your family. No questions asked. You don't need to tell me that how much you're taking. I don't, it doesn't matter to me. What's a matter to me is that you have access to the things that you need. And this young man, he shared a little bit about a story about just his family struggling financially. Dad was in and out of work and was trying to find some stability, but food was a scarcity for that family. And so I said, well, do what you need to do, take what you need. No questions asked, like I said. So I left a bag in the resource closet right before break. He came in, grabbed what he needed, and he went on his way. And as we were coming back from break, he stopped by my office that first day back from our winter break, the 2-week break that we were on. And he said, Mr. Durant, I want you to know, not only do I thank you, I want you to know that my family thanks you. And I said, thank me for what? I mean, it's kind of a loss for words. Like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, you provided us an opportunity to have access to food during a time when we really needed it. And I just want you to know that we're in a much better place now. And my dad's in a better place. My dad found a job while we were on break, and we have the things that we need. But had we not had access to the resource closet, I'm not sure where we would have gotten access to food. And so I share that story because I think it's important to understand that when we take that high level vision of where these resources are going and you trickle them down, I think there is a personal touch in the room. And that personal touch is how students are able to truly have access to things that all of us may not always, may not have to think about when it comes to food and access to food, where some of our families do really have to think about, what does this mean for my family in terms of not being able to provide a warm meal. And so I think hearing that and noticing that, I think, I'm always advocating for how do we continue to provide this opportunity for our kids and our families to have access to these things, because we know, right, food is life. Food is important for us to nourish our bodies. So really wonderful experience to have the opportunity to partner with the folks on this call to be able to provide resources to the students, because we know when they have full tummies, they're able to sit in classrooms and really soak up the skills that they need. And this resource closet is being able to provide that opportunity for our kids to do that.
That's so important, Chris. And it's so amazing to hear those stories and see it in action. And, I notice sometimes when I hear these stories, like every single one's different, but there's a reoccurring theme of that the students feel seen. And they know that our local neighborhood schools matter, and that they have trusted adults in that building who can help them. And Jonna, I want to jump to the next question, but I wanted to jump back to you if you've got it off the top of your head. When we did the last survey of students and families who had accessed the resource network, what percentage were saying, if you could help me remember that data around percentage of students and families that were saying that they felt like they had a trusted adult?
It was 100% of students that we surveyed said that they felt that they had a trusted adult in their school building after receiving resources from the Resource Closet program. 100%.
Talk about the power of the neighborhood school. That's awesome. Liesl, I think that's a great segue over to, really the model of the student and family outreach program. And what is it that you all can do, because we have this triage at the school level now?
Yes. Before I answer that question and talk more about student family outreach program, I just wanted to also expand on a little bit of what Chris was saying about what students need to be learning ready. And that goes beyond food, right? Especially since public benefits such as SNAP and EBT do not pay for non-food items. And so our students, especially at the high school level, where Chris is, to have things like hygiene items are incredibly important. We know that poor hygiene can affect attendance, it can affect peer relationships. And so the fact that the resource network has also been able to step in and provide additional resources outside of food is really powerful as well. My program is called the Student and Family Outreach Program. We affectionately refer to it as SFOP. And I think a big change that we saw in establishing a true continuum of services is that SFOP was seen as sort of a satellite program in the district, that people might send off a referral to us and we're going to help the family. And having this resource network allowed us to have really true collaborative relationships with our schools, because school staff started to have more just deeper conversations about family needs. It allowed them to establish stronger relationships with families. And our mission at SFOP is to remove barriers that prevent students from both surviving and thriving in school and beyond. And so, as Lisa said at the very beginning, it is about equitable access to learning. And to be able to have these really strong collaborative relationships with schools has also allowed schools to build their own capacity. And that has gone far beyond resource network. It has gone to where our family liaisons are learning how to work with community partners, how to recruit community partners, growing their capacity and their comfort level in communicating and public speaking. And so there's all these ripples that go way beyond a box of food. And in SFOP, we have the idea of the whole child, which I know is a question that's coming up, which I can talk a little bit more about how that is. But I think just this idea that we were able to build more capacity in the schools.
That's really been a theme, and you guys have done a beautiful job, Liesl. I know that you guys have grown the number of community navigators that you speak. In your office, you have 8 languages represented in 5 countries.
We actually have 6 countries of origin. Wow. And 12 languages that are spoken among our team. And so in addition to having these countries and languages, we also have a team of staff with lived experience who were undocumented children, who have lived experience with homelessness, who have lived experience with food insecurity. And so again, relationships between our families and people who look and sound like them, and it removes a lot of stigma. And so I don't need to keep repeating it, but it's just had massive effects beyond making sure that kids are fed.
For sure, for sure. Thanks for what you do. And really, we can't do this work as a foundation, as a school district, as an organization without partners like Carrie and Chevron. Carrie, I don't know if you even know this, but as the COVID wind down happens, and we know the EBT SNAP benefits have gone away, and we've seen higher need, and we've and the COVID dollars from the government that were really helping launch this, those are winding down and are almost gone. It's partners like Chevron stepping up and saying, no, this is important and this needs to happen. That's what's making this possible. And we really appreciate that. And I want to talk to you about Chevron's areas support our education and workforce development and the environment. And how is this investment in something like the resource network? How do you see that support serving these priorities?
I want to give you a little background about Chevron before I delve into your answer, because I think the background is actually important to understand where we are today. Chevron has had a deep commitment and really deep values about education for all of the time I've been with Chevron, which is 15 years. Fully 30% of the budget that we have here in the Rockies Business Unit is allocated strictly to education. And we spread that out over a number of levels, starting with early childhood and then working our way up through elementary and middle and high school. And then we go into community colleges, and then we go into universities. So we see that whole continuum, and we know that many things go into having students succeed. I will tell you that traditionally we focus on STEM education. We look at inquiry-based learning. We look at hands-on experience. We look for data points of student growth, all the typical things that you would expect a data-driven company to be looking for in terms of our outcomes of our investment. That's been my whole thing the whole time I've been here, until I came across five-star schools. And the COVID experience as well, I think, changed a lot of people's thinking, made things clearer, more clarity around what is really needed, and all the things that educators have to go through in order to help kids succeed. That just changed everything. So for me, who has always been focused on those other things, seeing what is really needed for success changed my outlook. And I still want to invest in what Chevron to invest in the academic side of things, and we do. But I see the huge need for kids to be able to have the resources they need, the food, the clothing, the hygiene they need to come to school and be ready to learn. And that's been a big growth thing for me personally. And I'm grateful that I've seen it. So that's kind of where we are. I want to make a couple of points about your resource network, though. You know, education is really enriching on so many levels, right? We all get so much out of it. The kids get so much out of it, socialization, learning, and so forth. But there's another reason why Chevron invests in that and the enrichment, which is for workforce development, having a pipeline of employees, not just for us, but for the many different sectors of our economy that need good workers. And I have to say that knowing that the resource network for Adams County 12 or five-star schools is targeted toward or directed towards schools that are workforce development, career technical education, that isn't a deciding factor, but it's an important, I guess, component of what we think about. So I commend you for that. And then I would just say, I guess one of the things it's been on my mind a whole lot as I've thought about this day today, and that is, you know, we all wish the world was different. I so wish, as I know all of you do, that we did not see these kinds of hardships among our students and adults and everyone. But the world isn't different. So I am personally so grateful to people like you who see a need and have gone about fixing it. It's really a wonderful thing. And I'm so glad that Chevron can be part of this. It's really terrific.
Oh, Carrie, thanks for that. Yeah, we're really thrilled to have you play into that partnership and for the vision that you all have around, you know, understanding learning readiness, and what that means to be able to get into the STEM fields, to be able to understand things. And I know our conversation started with talking about our STEM mentorship programs and really attracting BIPOC and female students and the disparities there. And what we learned was, you know, what are all the different barriers to access? And, you know, there's kind of a universal theme there. So thanks for having that vision and being open to it. I want to go back to Jonna and talk about partnerships and how partnerships with donors and the community resources, and how does it all play into the work of a foundation? I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, we recognize that we are not the only ones in this space, and the Resource Network, formerly the Resource Closet Program, but now because we're bringing in all of these community partnerships, we recognize that we are a network supporting our community. So the Resource Network program aims to be the ambulance that is meeting our school community's immediate needs. We are the ones providing triage, and then we connect them over to Liesel's team at SFOP or to other community partners who can provide that ongoing support. With this model, we can address the Adams 12 community needs in real time. And we are the only ones in this area providing resources in this way. Once we provide those immediate resources, then we can connect them to our incredible partners for ongoing support. Our partners have been working in this space for a really long time, and they are the experts that we can rely on for support. Some of our partners are providing in-building support, and others we're referring our families to. We've got a long list of support that we're receiving from many different community partners, but some of the big ones that have really stepped up in the last year to support our program and provide some longevity as COVID dollars begin to dwindle, our Food Bank of the Rockies, Food for Hope, Conscious Alliance, Sparkling Kindness, We Don't Waste, We Cycle, Clothes to Kids, Safeway, Amazon, and Adams County. I'm sure Liesl could add more. I mean, there are just so many community partners who have come to the table to support the Adams 12 community, and we couldn't do this work without community partners supporting us to support our families in the ongoing support that they need beyond those immediate resources that they're receiving in the schools. And as grant funds continue to dwindle, we are relying on these critical partnerships more and more.
Jonna, that's such a good point. It's the trending of giving. You know, I think we talk about this. For those who are watching who might be in the nonprofit space, you know that there's a lot of trending around grant giving and having consistent partners like Chevron, like the community partners that are in this work. That's how you have sustainability and the ability to move on with this. It's so vital. Chris, so we're talking about coming out of COVID. We're talking about like this new era, and man, there's so many conversations happening and so many needs. We do need investment in our education programs and our facilities and in our teachers. We need investment in program materials. And I mean, there's so much, but what other trends or needs are you seeing emerge here at the beginning of the school year, particularly in a workforce development based campus? Paint a picture for us. What is the support of, you know, like, what does this look like, you know, even with, you know, materials and supplies for students?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, Shannon. You know, one of the things that I'm starting to notice, and I think just comes because of the nature that of the work that we do at Bowman. I would say one area that, you know, I guess let me back up a little bit. We talked a little bit about what we have as part of our career and tech ed programming. Our students engage in what they call career and technical student organizations, also known as CTSOs. So CTSOs are opportunities for our career and tech ed students to engage in student organizations where they participate and they compete in competitions where they exercise the skills and demonstrate the skills against other talent across Colorado, and eventually on the national level where they're competing at the national competitions for the various and respective areas of the schooling they're receiving. One of the components of participation in CTSOs, right, is the professional attire. So aside from the skill set that they're bringing, also being able to provide our students with access to the professional attire that one may need as they're engaging in a professional conference setting, right? So things like suit jackets, things like button-down shirts, slacks, shoes, things that we probably have, you know, maybe I wouldn't say endless amounts, but a large quantity, right, for us professionals, right, in terms of the attire that we wear in the work that we do, right? And so I think another element to this conversation as we think about providing students access to being able to, you know, have things like access to a resource closet where they can get the food that they're looking for, or some of the hygiene things that they need. Also, some of the professional attire that comes with, you know, as they show up for an interview, right? We want students to be able to be well dressed and really, quote unquote, dress that part, right? What does it mean to wear a professional, you know, suit, if you will, to an interview? It's easy for us to say that because as professionals, that's something that we know, right? It's one of those hidden agenda items, right? Around how do we make sure that we show up for the interview and show up ready and career ready? Well, career ready also looks like making sure they have access to, you know, the professional clothing that one must wear as they step into those spaces to present the skill set that they can offer a company. And so being able to find those partners in the community to say, hey, you know what, you know, we're partnered with this resource individual or with this company where they can absolutely provide you with, you know, just the basic, you know, white collared button down shirt coupled with, you know, slacks and some nice dress shoes, right? Those are, I think, things that I think as we continue to grow our career readiness, you know, I guess as we grow in the career readiness space, in addition to the skill set that they're learning in CTE, there's also this other component of how do we make sure that they also show up ready for that interview. And so being able to provide opportunities and access for students to be able to come in, get what they need. And even, I think you touched a little bit about this, Shannon, kind of that mentorship piece, making sure that they have opportunities to engage in conversations where they're talking about, hey, can we have just a brief conversation around, I'm getting ready for this interview. Here are some things that I want to, throw around and have you be a thought partner on. And so being able to also engage some of our community partners and engaging with some of our students around the pieces around mentorship, right? Because I think that as we talk a lot about getting students ready for workforce, it's one thing to teach the technical skill, and it's yet another, ball of wax, if you will, as you start thinking about the networking piece and the piece around ensuring kids know how to network, because the next job or their next, opportunity in the workforce could be through two people that they networked with at a conference. And now they know, hey, I know so-and-so who works for Chevron, or I know so-and-so who works for NRail. How do we make sure that they, have my resume? That was the conversation we had at a conference that we were at together, but that networking piece. But to feel comfortable in those spaces with those individuals, you got to make sure you have that attire. And I think that's important.
Sorry, I have still not figured out the mute button in the 4 years we've all been online, you guys. Chris, that's such a good point. And I really love that you kind of tied that in, because that is equity in education. That is welcoming educational spaces where you're safe to learn that and to feel part of that community. And I think that tees up really well with Liesl and the idea of the whole child approach. And I'd love for you to talk about that and how is that related? Where do we go from here? And can you actually touch, it's something that we haven't touched on yet, is Adams 12 5-star schools have had a huge influx of newcomer students. And so can you speak to the whole child approach and juggling that with how do we welcome new students from new cultures and new experiences?
Yes, I mean, Chris really nailed it. The whole child approach, or the whole human approach, because it's with everyone surrounding us, is looking at each of us as our own individual person. And sometimes, as a former teacher, I quickly discovered that it was important that I know which of my students needed gifted enrichment, which of my students needed special education enrichment, but also which one of my students was moving between his cousins' houses every night, which one of my students came to school in the morning very hungry. And the reason that was so important is because, and I say this to adults all the time, I say, just think about how you feel when you've gone all morning and it's 3 p.m. and you have not eaten yet. You're cranky, you can't pay attention, and you just can't access everything. When you're distracted because you're worried about the way you look or your hygiene, you can't tune in to what your teacher is saying or what you're supposed to be learning. So it's really that individualized approach. And Adams 12 really lives out our mission to know each student by name, strength, and need. That is the core of who we are as a district. And yes, we had a huge influx of newcomer students in 2021 of Afghan evacuees and their families who were evacuated from Kabul in August of 22 is when we saw them. The past 4 years are just one blur. And we have the largest number of Afghan students in our district. And right away, with the help of the foundation and the partnership of our community partners, we were able to make sure that we were meeting their dietary needs and recognizing their restrictions around what they could or could not eat, making sure that we were getting them the staples that they needed as opposed to boxed food, which was not very popular in the Afghan community. And so being able to really quickly, because we already have this resource network, figure out how we were going to pivot and work with our community partners to really to show our community that your part of us. We're part of you. There's no difference. Doesn't matter where you're living in Adams 12, that we're one community. And I also have an emotional story, Chris, and it is around a newcomer. But we had this incredible young man, unaccompanied, who was a refugee from Venezuela. And he went unaccompanied through Florida, came and landed in Thornton, and was working with our unaccompanied homeless youth advocate, who I'm pretty sure is now working with you, Chris. But this unaccompanied youth advocate texted me one day and asked if we could buy a guitar for this young man because he wanted to audition for a music scholarship. And because our program believes very, very strongly in that we don't just help students in academic life or to survive, but that we help them to thrive beyond our school, like their school experience with us, I said, yes, absolutely. He wants to do an audition. That's amazing. And here I am thinking, it's $180 and how good can the kid be? And maybe 6 weeks later, the unaccompanied youth advocate texted me and said that this young man had just received a $100,000 scholarship to the CU Boulder School of Music.
Wow.
And so you can't, until you hear a story like that, you really cannot get the connection between knowing our students, who they are as human beings and what drives them. And I think Chris is just so amazing and fortunate to work in that CTE world, because that's what drives our kids, that career in tech ed, that opportunity to pursue a real passion. It has helped some of the adults on this call with their own students. And so I'm getting really excited about my answer, but yeah, I think it just illustrates how important it is that we know all of our students. And then, one thing that I think sometimes goes unnoticed in terms of ripple effect is I can tell you that when I had students who were dysregulated in the classroom, whether that was from hunger or frustration or whatever it was, it made my day pretty tough. And when we make sure that our students have what they need to access learning, it actually helps our teachers. It helps them stay in the classroom. It retains them. It encourages other people to become teachers. And so again, I think it's awesome to have a panel like this because we can connect dots that sometimes the larger community doesn't see.
Yeah, Liesl, wow. Thank you both, Chris and Liesl, for making us cry today. So that was lovely. I would like to wrap this conversation up with Carrie. Carrie, as John mentioned, we move out of COVID and the support for projects like these and these public-private partnerships just become absolutely essential. And that it's all about access for all students. At the same time, I know it's becoming more important that companies show that they're strong and lasting community partners. How does Chevron put all that together as a company?
That is really a great question. I think the one aspect of your question has to do with sustainability. And to me, what I'm hearing, one of the things I hear in your question is, what happens if you go away? Or what happens if XYZ partner goes away? How does that work? And, I have no guarantees, just like any other partner has no guarantees that Chevron's going to be here forever and we'll always be able to invest at whatever level we're at. But I can tell you this, Chevron loves community. And I think most companies do. We love being a partner of choice, a neighbor of choice. We want to be in the community because we live here. We raise our families here, we play here, we work here. It's just, we're part of the community. And one of the best things about community is people coming together and working for the common good. And this is what I hear resonating through this conversation so far today is a lot of people, coming together for the common good. You could call it a public-private partnership in terms of, if you want to put an economic term around it and a buzzword or buzz phrase for how we get things done, but really it's partnerships in general is how we get things done in this country, not just through our government, not just through our public organizations, or even with not just through the private sector. We can't do it all. We have to work together. And what I see happening at Adams County 12, which, by the way, I'm a graduate of, so I'm a little bit biased about what you guys are doing. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think what you are doing is pulling the community together and getting the community invested in your schools and in your mission. And that's really when schools succeed, is when they're able to pull different aspects of the community together to support that mission of supporting kids and their education and their aspirations, to help them be, what I've heard throughout this whole conversation, be their best selves, and to be able to pursue a life that's meaningful to them. And I can just tell you that Chevron, I'll speak for Chevron, I'll speak for myself, I love nothing more than collaborating and connecting and creating with people like you to create progress and to create success. And I think you have given your communities, your vast communities of North Glen, Thornton, Broomfield, all of those that you mentioned, you've given them a platform to come together. And that's just really wonderful.
Carrie, that is beautiful. That's the power of partnership right there.
It is.
So, you guys, I just want to thank you so much for your time today and for what you each contribute to our community, to our neighborhood public schools, and the value of education, how it impacts our entire community. And I want to leave with a story of my own. I got to go to what's called signing night for career and technical education in Adams 12 schools a couple of years ago. And I was standing in the back, kind of trying to stay way back. And the students sign on to careers and opportunities through the skills that they've learned through our school district. And I was standing next to a counselor, and she said, "Your 5-star resource network has touched every single student signing tonight." She pointed out a few, and she said, "That one got food. That one got housing resources. That one had work boots. That one had a test paid for and got to go to Skills USA. That one was able to get help through the homeless youth advocate," and just on and on. And it brought tears to my eyes, because it's these little tiny touches. Not any of those students could have done it, but each one of them, someone saw they knew who they were, they saw what they needed, and they made sure they got it. And it's the power of every single person in this district and our partners who bring those resources to us that make it possible, knowing each student by name, strength, and need. So I'm really proud to be a part of Adams 12 5-star schools. I'm thrilled that I get to be a part of my team at the 5-Star Education Foundation. I want to thank each and every one of you for your contribution and for your time today to talk about this. And we're so excited to celebrate welcoming schools at the Great Ed Luncheon on September 24th. Yeah, I think it's going to be so cool to see everyone there. We're going to have, I think it's at the Botanic Gardens, which, I mean, I know when I heard about that, I was like, yes, perfect year to be there. So, I know our superintendent, Chris Godowski, is going to be speaking to the group about this work and about how we welcome students at all levels in our schools. So I hope those of you who are watching this today will join us at the Great Ed Luncheon. I know I want to turn this over to either Lisa or Annalise, but if you all are unable to jump on, go ahead, Lisa. You can say it better than I can. Thank you for having us today. We really appreciate everything Great Ed does in our community. I mean, what a convener of minds and thoughts, and really rallying people around the importance of public education in Colorado. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon, and to all of you. That was incredibly inspirational. It's a reminder of how public education is so much at the center of our communities. And as I hear each of you talking about some of those stories and the ripple effects, you'll never know. But just the lives that you've changed, and not just the lives of the kids, but the lives of the families and other children. It's really remarkable. And it's a reminder of what we can do together And so we are so honored and excited to be able to honor you, to celebrate you on the 24th, and to thank Chevron for making this possible. And I think we all together have that shared view of a Colorado where every student can thrive. And as you said, Carrie, it's too bad that we're at a place where what you're doing is necessary, but it is so critical to make sure that every student comes to a place that feels welcoming, where they feel they belong, where they feel seen and supported, so that they're ready to be academically challenged. And you all are doing that work, and Great Ed will continue to fight to make sure that your district has the resources to take those touches that you do and make sure that those kids continue to be known by name and need and
Maybe the next generation can figure out the mute button. Name, strength, and need.
Name, strength, and need.
What
Thank
every
you.
student
I almost had it, but that's what you all have been doing. We can't thank you enough for it. Can't thank you enough, Carrie, for bringing this story to us and giving us the opportunity to give it to others, both here and on this webinar and at the luncheon. And thank you all for everything you do and for being a part of this.
Thanks for having us, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank
Yeah,
you
thank you.
all.
See y'all on the 24th.
Yeah.